Nestled in the quiet town of Ashwood, Oregon, Melissa resided in an old, rambling house, its creaking floorboards and cavernous rooms echoing with the whispers of a bygone era. Her parents, Sarah and John, were pillars of the community, their lives revolving around their roles as teachers and dedicated volunteers. This weekend, they were attending a marriage retreat, leaving Melissa to navigate the solitary confines of their imposing abode. Melissa, a young woman in her early 20s, was fiercely independent, her spirit as vibrant as the town's blooming spring flowers. She worked as a waitress at the local diner, a place where stories unfolded over steaming cups of coffee and hearty plates of waffles. Despite her self-reliance, a tinge of apprehension lingered as she faced the prospect of spending the weekend alone. The house, with its labyrinthine corridors and shadowy corners, seemed to harbor an air of mystery, its silence broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway and the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath her feet. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the living room walls, Melissa sought solace in the familiar routine of preparing dinner. The sizzle of bacon in a pan and the aroma of freshly baked bread momentarily dispelled her unease. However, as the night deepened, the house's stillness grew oppressive, the silence punctuated only by the ticking of the grandfather clock, its steady rhythm echoing through the empty rooms. A sudden, sharp noise from upstairs jolted Melissa from her reverie. Her heart pounded like a drum as she strained to listen. The sound came again, louder this time, followed by a series of slow, deliberate footsteps. Fear gripped her, its icy tendrils wrapping around her spine. The footsteps approached, growing louder with each passing moment. Melissa's mind raced, her imagination conjuring up sinister figures lurking in the darkness. We continue the story, but before, please like this video and subscribe my YouTube channel for more horror stories. Panic seized her, and she retreated to the pantry, its cramped confines offering a semblance of security. She squeezed herself into a corner, her breath catching in her throat as the footsteps halted just outside the door. The silence was deafening, broken only by the rapid beating of her own heart. As the minutes stretched into eternity, the footsteps receded, fading into the depths of the house. Melissa waited, her body trembling with fear, until the silence was once again complete. She emerged from the pantry, her senses on high alert, every shadow and creaking floorboard amplifying her anxiety. The night stretched on, each passing hour punctuated by unsettling noises, whispers echoing through the hallways, creaking floorboards shifting under unseen weight, and the occasional thud that sent shivers down Melissa's spine. Sleep eluded her, her eyes wide open, her mind conjuring up terrifying scenarios. As the first rays of dawn pierced the darkness, Melissa felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had survived the night, her fear gradually giving way to a newfound sense of determination. She would not let the house's eerie atmosphere dictate her actions. Melissa spent the day cleaning and organizing, filling the house with the sounds of activity. She played music, her favorite tunes echoing through the rooms, dispelling the lingering sense of dread. As the sun began to set, she decided to face her fears head-on, armed with a flashlight and a baseball bat. With a determined step, she ascended the creaking staircase, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. She checked each room, her heart pounding with every creak of the floorboards. There was no sign of anyone, but the lingering sense of unease refused to dissipate. Back in the living room, Melissa settled into an armchair, the baseball bat resting on her lap. She was determined to stay awake, to confront whatever unseen presence lurked within the house's shadows. As the night deepened, the familiar noises returned. The whispers, the creaking floorboards, the footsteps. Melissa's grip tightened on the baseball bat, her nerves on edge. The footsteps grew closer, their rhythm echoing through the hallway. The door creaked open, and Melissa sprang to her feet, the baseball bat raised high. A figure emerged from the darkness, its form obscured by the shadows. Melissa swung the bat with all her might, connecting with something solid. A scream pierced the silence, followed by a heavy thud. Melissa dropped the baseball bat, her body trembling with shock. She fled the house, the scream echoing in her ears, the terrifying image of the figure etched in her mind. She never returned to the old house, its secrets forever locked within its creaking walls. The memory of that night haunted her, a chilling reminder of the unseen forces that lurked in the shadows, waiting for those who dared to confront them. Story number 2. In the tranquil town of Port Townsend, Washington, nestled amidst a canopy of towering pines and overlooking the Puget Sound, stood an old, imposing house known as the Havenwood Manor. Karen, a young woman still grieving the loss of her beloved husband David just 2 months after their marriage, found herself alone in the echoing halls of the manor. Karen and David had purchased the Havenwood Manor with dreams of a life filled with love and laughter, but fate had cruelly intervened. David, a kind and gentle soul, had succumbed to a sudden illness, leaving Karen to navigate the vastness of the manor alone. One night, as the shadows lengthened and the moon cast an eerie glow upon the manor's grounds, Karen settled into her favorite armchair, a stack of books at her side. She sought solace in the familiar words, hoping to escape the loneliness that gnawed at her heart. As the night deepened, an unsettling silence descended upon the manor. The usual symphony of creaking floorboards and rustling curtains was replaced by an unnatural stillness. Karen felt a prickle of unease run down her spine, an instinctive warning that something was amiss. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a loud crash from the upper floor. Karen's heart pounded in her chest as she sprang to her feet, her mind racing with possibilities. The crash was followed by a series of muffled thuds, as if someone was moving heavily around the house. Overcome with fear, Karen instinctively reached for the phone, but the line was dead. The isolation of the manor, once a source of comfort, now felt like a prison, trapping her with an unseen predator. With a trembling hand, Karen grabbed a baseball bat from the fireplace, her only weapon against the unknown threat. She slowly ascended the grand staircase, her footsteps echoing ominously in the silent house. Reaching the top of the stairs, Karen cautiously peered into the darkened hallway. The air was thick with tension, and the shadows seemed to dance and writhe, playing tricks on her mind. A sudden movement caught her eye. A figure emerged from the darkness, its form shrouded in shadows. Karen's heart pounded like a drum as she raised the baseball bat, her grip tightening. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a woman with a twisted smile and eyes that glowed with an unnatural red light. Karen gasped in horror, her body trembling with fear. The woman lunged forward, her nails extended like claws. Karen swung the baseball bat with all her might, connecting with the woman's shoulder. The woman let out a screech of pain, her eyes burning with fury. A fierce struggle ensued, Karen fighting with every ounce of strength she possessed. The woman was relentless, her attacks fueled by a malevolent force that seemed to possess her. Just as Karen was about to succumb to the woman's onslaught, she remembered a hidden passage her grandfather had once shown her, a secret escape route from the manor. With a surge of adrenaline, she broke free from the woman's grasp and fled towards the passage. Karen stumbled through the dark, twisting tunnels, her heart pounding in her chest. The woman's screams echoed behind her, growing fainter with each step. Finally, Karen emerged from the tunnel into the cool night air. She collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath, her body shaking with exhaustion and fear. As the first rays of dawn illuminated the sky, Karen cast one last glance at the Havenwood Manor, its imposing silhouette etched against the horizon. She knew she could never return to that place, forever haunted by the horrors she had witnessed. Karen left Port Townsend, seeking solace in a new town, a new life. The memory of that night would never fade, but she vowed to rebuild her life, honoring the memory of her beloved David. Story number 3. In the quaint, snow-dusted town of Havenwood, nestled amidst the rolling hills and whispering pines of upstate New York, lived a young boy named Sanchez. Sanchez was a bright, inquisitive lad of 12, with a mop of unruly brown hair and eyes that sparkled with mischief. He lived in a charming Victorian mansion on Elm Street, a grand old edifice that stood as a proud testament to the town's rich history. As the festive season approached, Sanchez found himself home alone, his parents having embarked on a much-needed business trip. The mansion, with its labyrinthine corridors and creaking floorboards, took on an eerie air as the shadows lengthened and the wind howled outside. Sanchez, unfazed by the solitude, decided to make the most of his time alone. He raided the kitchen, indulging in a feast of cookies and milk, and then settled down in his cozy living room, a book in hand. The crackling fire in the hearth cast a warm glow, and the gentle ticking of the grandfather clock provided a comforting rhythm. As the night deepened, a strange sensation crept over Sanchez. He felt an unsettling presence, an unseen entity lurking in the shadows. The silence of the house seemed to amplify the sound of his own heartbeat, and he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, and a chill ran down Sanchez's spine. He put down his book and listened intently. A faint creaking sound echoed from the attic, a sound that seemed to grow louder with each passing moment. Sanchez's curiosity overcame his fear, and he decided to investigate. He crept up the creaking stairs, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The attic was a dusty, forgotten space, filled with cobwebs and old furniture draped in white sheets. As Sanchez ventured deeper into the attic, the air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to dance and writhe around him. A sudden movement caught his eye, and he froze in his tracks. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall and gaunt, its face obscured by the shadows. Sanchez's heart pounded in his chest as the figure advanced towards him. He could make out a long, bony hand reaching out, its fingers gnarled and twisted like the roots of a dead tree. Sanchez screamed, his voice echoing through the attic. He turned to run, but his legs felt like lead. The figure lunged at him, its icy touch sending shivers down his spine. Sanchez stumbled and fell, his flashlight clattering to the floor. The figure towered over him, its eyes glowing with an eerie red light. Sanchez closed his eyes, bracing for the inevitable. But the attack never came. Instead, he heard a soft, raspy voice whispering in his ear. "Don't be afraid, child," the voice said. "I mean you no harm." Sanchez opened his eyes and looked up at the figure. Its face was still obscured, but its voice held a gentle, soothing tone that calmed his fears. The figure extended its hand again, and Sanchez hesitated for a moment before taking it. The hand felt cold and clammy, but it didn't hurt him. The figure helped Sanchez to his feet and led him out of the attic. As they descended the stairs, the figure began to fade, its form becoming transparent and ethereal. "Who are you?" Sanchez asked, his voice trembling. "I am a guardian," the figure replied. "I have watched over this house for many years, and I am here to protect you." The figure vanished completely, leaving Sanchez alone in the hallway. He stood there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. He didn't know if it was all a dream, but the icy touch of the figure's hand and the gentle voice still lingered in his mind. Sanchez returned to his living room, the fire still casting a warm glow. He picked up his book and tried to read, but his mind kept wandering back to the attic and the mysterious figure. As the night wore on, Sanchez began to feel drowsy. He curled up on the couch and drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Sanchez woke up feeling refreshed and rested. He remembered the events of the night before, but they seemed like a distant dream. He went about his day, feeling a strange sense of peace and calm. As the days turned into weeks, Sanchez never saw the mysterious figure again, but he knew that it was still there, watching over him, a guardian in the shadows. And so, Sanchez lived on in the grand old mansion on Elm Street, no longer afraid of the solitude, but comforted by the presence of the unseen guardian. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the realm of true Home Alone horror stories. I hope you found these tales both captivating and thought-provoking. Until next time, stay safe and vigilant, for the unknown lurks just beyond our doorsteps.